It looks like it's about 5 after the hour, so I just want to welcome everyone for joining the latest PhUSE Computational Science Working Groups webinar. And this is the final installment in our Marching to March series. The 2016 Computational Science Symposium is less than 3 weeks away, and this webinar is designed to provide you with an overview of working group activities that will actually be occurring at the meeting. If you have not registered for the CSS, there's only about 20 open slots remain, and we have actually a hard cap. So if you're good at multitasking, now would be a good opportunity to, if you haven't registered, to actually pay attention to the webinar on one hand and register for it on the other. So before we jump into the presentations that again will give you an overview of what the working groups will actually be doing at the CSS, I just want to take care of a few housekeeping activities. As you may have heard, the webinar is being recorded, so if you have other colleagues that may not have been able to join today, you can get this posted within the next week or so, and you can just send that on to them, and they can get an idea of what's going to happen at the CSS. We will do question and answer at the end. If you do have questions, please type them into the GoToWebinar menu, and we will get to those at the end. And if we are unable to get to your question, we'll be posting both the presentations as well as any unanswered questions to the PhUSE website a few days after the webinar recording, or after the webinar is recorded, so you can actually then go to the PhUSE website and get all the information there. So as an introduction, I am going to turn the webinar over to Mr. Chris Decker, who will just kind of walk us through a little bit about the 2016 CSS. So Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Scott. I want to make sure that, number one, you can hear me, and number one, you can see my screen. Are both those accurate?
Those are both accurate.
Okay. Well, thank you all. I will keep this short today, as we had many better presenters on the agenda today that are going to give you a very thorough overview of the exciting activities that will be happening at our conference coming up in just 3 weeks. So I'm going to go quickly through some of these. Some of these are topics and information you've heard many times from me and through these webinars. We never know if we've got a few new people joining our webinars and needing a baseline understanding of the collaboration. So I'll quickly run through these and hand it off to the other presenters. So the real paradigm shift here in the computational science collaboration, both the symposium and the working groups, is to bring people together around the table to solve issues and challenges that we face in bringing products to market, as well as look at innovative and new ways of doing things, either from a technology or process perspective. So we have contributors and volunteers from all these different organizations, from regulatory to standards organizations to CROs and sponsors and vendors around this table, trying to put the pieces together and solve the challenging problems that we face. So the mission, and I won't read this, I think the two key words to call out in this is really a transparent and non-competitive environment where the different groups can get together and work on both gaps and challenges that we face, as well as looking at new ways of doing things from a technology and process perspective. So the collaboration is fairly simple. We have the working groups who meet throughout the year as volunteers to work on various focused projects, and then we have the symposium every March where the groups come back together to share their results. We'll continue to work on the projects and the activities within those projects. And that is wrapped by that makes up the computational science collaboration. There are 5 working groups, and I won't go into any of these at the moment because you'll hear from each of them today. But there's a steering committee that sits in the middle of those 5 groups, which tries to make sure that they align all the activities both within the groups, across the groups, and with other organizations such as FDA and CDISC. At this point, there are over 30 active projects that are ongoing in these various working groups. So there's an opportunity for everybody to get involved at some level and participate, both for them, their companies, and to just really engage in some of these really exciting projects. So the 2016 CSS, which is coming up again in just a few weeks, is a co-sponsorship between FDA and PhUSE, something we did in the first few years, and now we're back to making that officially a co-sponsorship. And we have over 40 attendees from FDA who will be joining us in the collaboration, as well as some individuals from PDMA as well. So it should be a very engaging and global conversation. We have less. I actually will update Scott from his original comment. We're down to less than 10 spots left. So as he mentioned, once this sells out, we can't let any more in there. So there is a facility limitation. So again, register if you want to attend. We had over 40 posters submitted this year, one of our highest totals, and we've been able to accept in 30 of those. So it should be a great, engaging poster session that we always have on Monday evening. Sunday night, we are opening this conference on Sunday. We will have the opening session at 5 p.m. So as you make travel arrangements for those that are attending, please make sure you can get down to Silver Spring, Maryland by that time. We'll have an opening kickoff where a few of the FDA folks and Computational Science Steering Committee will give an overview of the activities and things that will be happening, and then we'll provide a higher level overview of the exact things that will be going on during the conference. And then we'll have some working group informal breakout sessions. These will be the ability to meet with colleagues and network a little bit and just informally talk about the activities in those working groups. On some new activities that are happening at this event, as I mentioned, we are beginning our work on Sunday. We will have on Sunday evening a very exciting, which Tim will talk about, a Semantics 101 for clinical workshop. Filled up, but you're willing to sort of sit in and audit it, as we would say. If you want to listen into that, that should be an exciting bridge between some of this somewhat complex semantics area and how we can use it in our everyday work. And then also on Monday evening, we'll have a hands-on with the Scripts repository group and a introduction to GitHub and the PhUSE code repository. On Monday morning, the FDA will give their State of the Union, and we have some really good presentations that will be made. Colleen Ratcliffe will go over the e-study guidance and technical conformance. Where are we, and where are we as we march to the end of this year, and the guidance being 2 years out. Some perspectives from the trenches on the various CDIS models and how good is our data that's coming in. And the State of the Data Reviewers Guide, where that is, how their feedback on those things and how they're moving forward. So it should be some great and very practical discussions from the FDA. We will have working group breakout sessions on Monday afternoon and most of a good chunk of Tuesday. Monday evening we'll have our annual poster session and networking event. On Tuesday afternoon we will wrap up with an FDA and industry panel. We have representatives from FDA and various standards organizations, and we're going to talk about what the next generation standards and analysis will look like. How will we be doing product review in 10 years? So it should be a very engaging conversation. I recommend everybody come with good questions about the challenges we might still face and how are we going to solve those in the next 10 years. And then we'll close the conference on late Tuesday afternoon. So that's all I'm going to talk about today, just to give you a quick introduction. And I will now hand it over to DJ, who will launch us into one of the first working group overview. Hopefully that's coming across to you, DJ.
Yep. Give me one sec.
Okay, I can hear you and I can see you, so I think you're good to go.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, Scott. I will be talking about the first working group, so the optimizing use of data standards. So just as a little bit of background, for those of you who may not know or who have been involved in other working groups and haven't had a chance to partake in some of the projects we've done, the optimizing use of data standards working group is tasked with identifying specific gaps and issues that are preventing not just FDA but industry from optimizing our implementation and our use of standards, and then improving industry practices so that we can increase efficiencies, not just from our side, but then also to help the FDA and other regulators around the world have a chance to look at the data. We had a lot of good discussions during the last CSS 2015. We've had a lot of potential ideas come through for projects. We've had a chance to start some of them. We have some that we really needed some more help on, and so that's going to be part of the discussion this year in March. So what are the projects that we're going to be discussing and having time allocated for those breakouts? So right now we have 5 projects, and then we're going to have time for, as you see for number 6, a discussion during our afternoon wrap-up for the working group. So the 5 we have, first project around standard implementation nuances by versions, and we'll get into. I'm going to get into each of these. The second is around defined version 2.0 implementation and style sheet recommendations. The third, SDTM reviewer's guide, the legacy data conversion plan, and the study data standardization plan. The fourth is around reviewer's guide in define.xml, and the last, or the fifth, is data within the inspection site selection process. So I'm going to go through each of these in a little bit more detail. So the first project, the standards implementation nuances by version. This is actually something that came out of a roundtable discussion we had in our 2015 CSS, and it was really driven by, that roundtable was driven by the publication of the guidance documents and technical conformance guide and other specs and validation rules that were published by the US FDA. And during the roundtable discussions, we had an unbelievable attendance with a lot of really good breakouts in the following day. And one of the ideas that came out was, how do we identify what some of the issues are that industry faces in implementing a standard, or even for a given standard, the different versions? And what are some of those problems and nuances that we really need to figure out how we address for a given version, or even across standards? And so one of the things that really came up was that we really needed a leader to help lead this project, and we weren't able to find that. And so one of the goals for this CSS is to find a group of people that can really take this and move forward, because I think everyone would agree this is probably one of the biggest ideas for a PhUSE deliverable for this entire working group, right? What are those issues? And so the project is going to look to understand those nuances that exist for specific elements and issues across available versions. The goal would be to develop a gap analysis document, a white paper, perhaps a poster as the deliverables to highlight how implementation of those standards are going to impact how one addresses a common theme, right? And so this is important for sponsors that are still transitioning to newer versions of standards, for example, SDTM, as well as the vast majority of folks who have to govern multiple versions. So whether it's for a single product or application, even at Gilead, we have studies that are started a while ago that are on a standard for a specific version of SDTM. We have studies that are going to start now on a newer version of SDTM. How do we manage those differences? How do we figure out what tools we need to do when we want to do an ISS or an ISD, right? I mean, these are just basic problems that we're all facing. And I think this is going to be a really interesting challenge that this project is going to look to solve. The second project is around defined version 2.0 implementation and style sheet recommendations. Again, this was another project that ideated from that roundtable discussion that we had last year. And the project itself is really going to be a discussion, a group, a roundtable type discussion around best practices moving forward for a company implementation of a defined version 2.0, right? Part of that is going to be, we have a style sheet out there. Should there be some updates or edits to that style sheet based on how a company wants to implement 2.0? How would one go from 1 to 2, version 1.0 to version 2.0? Not just from the nuts and bolts of things, but what are the best ways to do that? And so we're actually going to have Marcelina Hungria, who is the Define XML Liaison, help facilitate this discussion, along with other folks who have been involved in 2.0. And the group is really going to discuss the needs, hone the scope for more active discussions following the conference. So I really look to this project at this conference to really be a working discussion to figure out what exactly this project is going to work on in 2016. What does that deliverable look like? And I really think it's extremely important, especially as not just the US FDA, but other regulatory agencies around the world start wanting to see Define 2.0, because there is really a lot of valuable information that just is not possible to put in a 1.0 Define. The second project, and it's really a kind of a subgrouping of projects, but it's all part of the same concept, is around the Study Data Reviewer's Guide, the Legacy Data Conversion Plan, the Study Data Standardization Plan. And these are projects that have really been going on for quite some time. And as time has gone on, we've had some actual deliverables. So we have the SDRG, but then we've come to the realization that given these updates that FDA puts out, given updates that we realize we need as an industry to standardize for templates, we're updating things that we've already published. And that's, I think, a natural sort of progression, right? So one project that's going on is related to the Legacy Data Conversion Plan. And part of that is going to be included as an update to the Study Data Reviewer's Guide. And so that's a project that's been being led to figure out, what does that edit look like? What does that implementation of an LDCP in the Study Data Reviewer's Guide look like? How do we edit it? What are some of the nuances that we want to include in that template? And then the second is around the Study Data Standardization Plan itself. So, for example, the template, the example document, the completion guidelines, so that a new company or even an established pharma sponsor who hasn't had a chance to complete and submit SDRGs or these plan templates can have a single source that they can look at, either adopt wholesale or use as a basis or as a template for their company-specific versions, right? And I think that's something that we've heard from a lot is, and a lot of good feedback that we've gotten on these projects that we've developed templates is that they're amazing starting points so that a company can figure out, well, we don't actually do things exactly this way, or, oh, we want to include an additional field, or we want to sort of edit and tweak this. It's so much easier to do that based off templates that have been vetted by, across industry, across FDA group of people. And so I think that's going to be really an exciting project to look at. And it actually is going to have a huge benefit to everybody. And I think if you haven't had a chance to look at that, look on the wiki, come to this project, and I think it's going to really help you understand what FDA is looking for based on some of those documents that they've published, not just in December of 2014, but since then. The next project is around the Reviewer's Guide and the Define XML. And I know I've actually received some questions from multiple folks around, well, is this the same project as that Define 2.0 implementation? They're not, I think, first of all. And the difference is really this. This project is aimed at looking at how we're using the Reviewer's Guide in conjunction with a Define XML. And this is really focusing on XML version 1.0. And the group is trying to generate best practices, lessons learned for how we handle some of those gray areas, some of those subjective areas where a sponsor has to make a decision, right? Where do we put this information? Does it go in a Reviewer's Guide? Does it go in a Define? Does it go in potentially both? And really coming up with, as an industry, given that there are some of these nuances where we have to make a decision, if we can come to terms on, this is the best practice that we all should follow, it not only makes our decision making easier because we don't have to make that decision anymore, right? We know, okay, this is the general format that we're going to use as an industry for where to put things. It actually helps tremendously the agency that needs to review these documents, because now they also know where to look for specific elements. I would view this project and then the 2.0 implementation as, sister projects or related in the future. And what I mean by that is, right now we're all using 1.0 Define. I think once we get to the point in the future where we all can start using, submitting, and being comfortable with 2.0, not just as a context for what is included, but having processes changed internally within our companies, then we can actually go forward and start saying, okay, now how do we differentiate between Reviewer's Guide and a 2.0 Define? The last project is around standardizing data within the inspection site selection process. This is actually a revival of a previous project from a few years ago, which focused on FDA's still draft guidance document on inspection site selection data sets. And these are the data set requests that you may have seen or experienced coming out of the OSI. This is really around the BIMO data set. And the group has been working on developing a CDIS gap analysis document to understand, from where the elements can be pulled from CDIS data sets in order for a sponsor company, any organization to more easily and efficiently create these requested data sets. And so they've actually been working on things for quite some time. And hopefully we're going to finalize that. If not, we're going to discuss it and really get to the point where we can finalize right after the CSS. And there's going to be a discussion during the conference as well around what are some of the things we can do to build off of it. The last thing is really a discussion. And so this discussion is going to serve as an opportunity for interested attendees to discuss pertinent topics during our Tuesday afternoon working group wrap-up session. So that's going to be Tuesday between 1 and 2 p.m. I'm going to give a brief overview of some of the things that have happened during the conference itself. And then we're going to allow people to really sit in groups and brainstorm ideas for new potential projects. And this is similar to how we did things in the 2015 roundtable discussion. And the goal is really that we want to make sure that we're working towards projects that people care about. And I think there's a lot of great feedback that comes out of these roundtable discussions that helps us as a leadership team understand where people are looking for help, right? What are some of the things that people find uncertainty in their group? Because oftentimes it's not going to be just one organization or one company. It's going to be the same issue across companies. And that's what we really want to figure out and get the most impact and find the most value. And so the goal then would be that the leadership team would then take all that feedback, collate it, understand it, and really work towards coming up with new project ideas that we're going to go through moving forward. So that's the idea. If you have any questions or if you're interested, reach out to me. I'm going to pass it on now to Mary.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Very good. All right, so I'm one of the co-leads for the development of standard scripts for analysis and programming working group. So I'll give a summary of what we've been doing and what we plan to do at the symposium. So as a reminder for those who have been involved, or maybe this is new to you, but our working group goal is to establish a platform for the development of program code, and it includes recommendations for standard analyses, tables, figures, and listings. So in particular, we're looking to fill the gap in standards where a lot of work has been done, starting at trial design all the way through collection and data, but less work has been done with the analysis and display side of things. So that's the gap we're trying to fill. In addition, we're looking to create a shared reusable code library. And so this is the crowdsourcing thinking, where instead of each individual company trying to create and maintain a reusable code library, this provides an opportunity for crowdsourcing and sharing of code. And the vision for this repository is beyond just the recommendations that we would create through some of our white papers. The vision is to actually store any code that somebody might feel useful in medical research. Right now, the repository is a little heavy on SAS and R, but also the intent is not to be limited to SAS and R. So we have 5 projects, and 3 of our projects all relate to the script repository. So we really have 3 focus areas, and these have been our 3 focus areas pretty much right from the start. We're not necessarily looking for additional projects, although I think we would be, certainly would entertain it. But right now, we've been focusing on these same projects and have, we have our hands full, which is making progress on these focus areas. So we have 3 projects related to the script repository. We have a project related to creating recommendations for analyses and displays for data that's common across therapeutic areas. And we have another project related to communication, promotion, and education. So here's a summary of what our working group has accomplished so far. We do have a script repository already created. A lot of the structure and legal issues and guidelines have all been created. We have scripts in the repository at various stages. You know, by now we have had 5 scriptathons, and so we do have things in the repository at various stages. And we've also have received code from the FDA from their Jumpstart program. That a couple of those already exist in the repository, and we have several others that will hopefully be there relatively soon, within the next couple of weeks. We do have 4 white papers that have been finalized. So we have 2 of them related to vital signs, ECGs, and labs, one on PK and one on demographics, disposition, and medications. So this is one area, whether you're interested in our working group or part of our working group or not, I mean, everybody on the phone can hopefully help socialize these particular deliverables. I mean, they're ready to use. So it is hard for a company to kind of change what they've been doing and move to something new, but that is the spirit of this effort. And in particular, if your company's looking to get rid of some of the old boring tables and try to get to more exciting visuals, these white papers will help you in that effort, because there are some really good displays here that are focused on a visual way of looking at the data. So our next steps is really to continue our work. So with regard to the script repository, there's going to be a pretty big effort to try to increase the usability of the scripts. And of course, we are always trying to keep populating the repository, keep building it. And we are going to increase our efforts to collaborate with the other working groups so that we can, there's certainly some overlap in certain areas with other working groups that we could hopefully facilitate some collaboration. We do have 5 other white papers planned. Perhaps this list will continue to grow, and we will entertain other ideas for what other white papers might be of interest. But right now we have 5 additional white papers planned at various stages. In fact, the thorough QT study white paper is actually almost done, so we'll have a 5th one pretty quick. And the other ones are going to probably be ready for review shortly as well. So our plans for the symposium itself is, as already mentioned, there is a workshop Monday night to give people a chance to get used to GitHub. There'll be several topics related to the repository that are planned to be discussed. In some cases, again, it would be getting ideas on how to build the repository and how to make it more usable. And we do plan on talking about the white papers, and in particular, we'll probably focus on adverse events of hepatotoxicity and questionnaire data. Those particular 3 white papers are ready for discussion. And at the symposium, a fair amount of our breakout session time will be separated. The repository group will work together, and the white paper group will work together separately for a good portion of the breakout sessions. So we're always looking for more project team members. So if you are on the phone and new to this and looking for a working group, we have plenty of opportunity for participation. If you do end up participating in a different working group, certainly you can still help us out by using the white papers that exist, and when these other white papers come out for review, we're always looking for help to recruit reviewers. And anytime you can advertise the existence of these white papers, the existence of this script repository will always be a big help to us. Okay, and I think we just have we do maintain different list box groups depending on your interest. So there's some information there. And all of our information can be found from either PhUSE EU or PhUSEwiki.org, but we do have some links available in the slides for people. Okay. I will pass it to Sue.
Okay, Mary, thank you very much. So now I'll go into presentation mode and continue with the discussion with the non-clinical working group. So you will see throughout my presentation that our working group is focused on really the non-clinical approaches to topics that are very aligned with the other working group topics that you've heard about. We have SDRG, we have projects about visualization and analysis, and we're very, very concerned and focused on standard implementation optimization. So all the talk about version management and things are all true for us. So many of our members also participate in the other working groups, and that's the great thing about the overall CSS collaboration, is that there's so much opportunity to work with people across industry about these topics that are common to all of us. So, CSS is just around the corner. Our particular working group has 6 projects ongoing, and here are listing the names of all the people that are the co-leaders of those 6 projects that will be topics in our CSS this year. We've had a really busy year since the last one in 2015, realizing 6 projects during what I call our PhUSE year. We have 3 projects focused on send implementation, and 3 focused on investigations into impacts of standards, ways standards implementation can help us with non-clinical data challenges. And like the other groups, we're delivering white papers, posters, we give recommendations to the CDIS and core team, and we are publishing templates on our wiki. So the link to that will be at the end. And the great thing is we're reaching directly over 110 members from over 25 companies that have joined our non-clinical working group list box, and we'll provide the link to that if you'd like to join our news as well. So this year's projects, a really exciting one, starting out our send implementation projects. We've conducted an industry send progress survey. This is really a hot topic across several different consortiums, and we have a couple people in our group that put together a terrific survey that ended up getting really worldwide participation. We're going to be focusing on that in one of our breakout sessions of the CSS this year. We have a lot of news for the non-clinical study data reviewers guide. We keep that aligned. We try to keep that aligned with the clinical SDRG. We've published a template guidance and samples, and we expect an upcoming public comments period to be coordinated through the FDA on that. So that's going to be exciting news. And we also have a send implementation user group, and this user group maintains an active wiki. They answer on a forum very, very reliably, I would say, to questions that come in from all around the world about send implementation, and they maintain an FAQ reference resource. And this we see as really a strong resource to help companies with standard implementation, and we see that going forward, and we'll definitely be recruiting for more of that at the CSS this year. Our investigational projects, we have an application of send data for analysis. So this is really how can we use the regulatory requirement to also support use cases where this kind of data organization can help us in study analysis and optimize the analysis of general toxicology data currently, and also it leads into the visualization topic as well. We have a visualization of group-related differences focused on histopathology data, which today is one of the, I would say, core data types that people are looking for improvements in visualization. And then we also have other endpoints in toxicology studies more and more, and these things aren't yet directly addressed in the Send IG implementation guide. And so how do we handle these additional endpoints on these studies to organize them into an electronic data set for submission, and then also to help with other types of analyses. So these are really interesting investigational projects, and this is the core of where our white papers come from, like you see in some of the other working groups, where really a diverse groups of people from CROs, from technology vendors and pharma get together and say, what is the best approach to some of these things? And then, publish these opinions in white papers. So it's a great way to contribute to collaborative publications. So those 6 projects, we expect they will continue, and there'll be topics of discussion for sure in our breakout groups at CSS. But we're going to focus particularly on a few high-profile topics for the non-clinical environment this year. We're going to start out with an introduction on Monday's first breakout group with the FDA computational sciences leaders to introduce the group of attendees that we have in the non-clinical working group this year, to comment on the mission and work of the non-clinical working group, continue to assure our alignment with the other working groups, and look back at some of our deliverables and think about ways that we can, as Mary mentioned, socialize them even more. There's also a new collaboration that's just recently been launched out of the Transcelerate initiative called BioCelerate, that's focused on non-clinical data, and we'll get an introduction to that. We see some real potential collaboration there as well. So we'll start to investigate that topic. Our biggest breakout will be a deep dive into the SEND implementation status across industry as of today. And this will feature really the results of our industry survey. We got quite a strong response from that, so we're really excited about it. We will have the CDIS SEND core team leader will be with us to talk about the status of the development of the continued development, really, of the SEND standard. And this compared to what the industry status will be an interesting topic for us to look at. How can our working group provide help? What can we do to strengthen the implementation of SEND within any of the different areas of our industry, whether it's within pharma that do internal studies at CROs or with the technology vendors. So this is an exciting area where we may come out with some new projects for the coming year. And then, as we do every year, like in the other as the other working groups are doing as well, is we're going to take a breakout to look at, as we do annually, what are the data challenges out there? What new ideas should we be looking at? And review those data challenges, see if our existing projects can encompass them in scope, if some of our existing projects have really achieved their goals and we can turn those resources toward new data challenges. We'll have that assessment through a process similar to what we've used in the past few years to identify, prioritize, and select new projects for the working group. And then we will have individual project development time. One of our breakouts will be dedicated that each project can really work face-to-face with the members that are attending in order to develop their project plan for the coming year. And specifically, we will have a strong review on the non-clinical study data reviewer's guide, the legacy data conversion plan and report topic has come up for us too, so we'll align there. And also make sure that we were prepared to support and partner with the FDA for the upcoming public comment period. So that's a real exciting topic there. So a very busy CSS for us in March for sure, and we're very, very excited for the topics that we have, and really look forward to working together again with everybody that joins us this year. We will have a webinar for the non-clinical working group list box attendees to be able to advertise our project's detailed status to all of the people who may not be able to attend our meeting this year as well. So if you're coming to Silver Spring, you'll be able to find us in the Fenton room during all the breakout sessions. Our wiki link is here, and if you have any questions, you can contact either Bob Dorsum or myself to join our group. So with that, I will pass it to Geoff.
Thank you.
There you go. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk very briefly about what's going on within the the Emerging Trends and Technologies group at the CSS. This is up on the wiki site. It just gives you an overview of what the Emerging Trends and Technologies group is about. Essentially, we're trying to look down the road and see what's going to be important in the next sort of 6 months to 6 years, and have an idea and work together about putting together some sort of strategy for our industry to adopt this. So we've got a few projects running at the CSS. The first one is a new one, the alternative transport formats. This is basically a project looking to replace SAS transport files, or to see whether it's worth replacing SAS transport files. So the first one, or the topics we're going to cover at the CSS, the first thing we want to do before we actually pick a particular format, we need to make sure that we've got the right, we're addressing the specific use cases. So what we've done is we've pulled together a set of important criteria that we think would help influence people's adoption of a particular standards itself. So we've started sort of just enumerating a few of those, and what we intend to do at the CSS is kind of make sure that each of those terms are adequately defined, and also see if there's anything we've missed, and then actually start putting together a questionnaire, because once we've assigned these criteria or picked these criteria, then we want to put it out to the wider industry to see what they think is important, what they think is less important. We need to pull together, because there's a number of sort of disparate sources of concern with the existing standard transport format, so we're just going to pull them together and start putting all having all this information ready to put into a white paper. So when we recommend either a change or a no change, we want to have sort of the weight of evidence behind us. And obviously we're talking about looking for new forms of transport format, and that'll just be kind of people having a think about what is out there and what they think could be used. There's also sort of a slight undertrend about not only just looking at the transport format itself, but maybe the content of what we're transporting. We've heard people talking about the fact there are problems with existing content models, and we just want to see, I mean, is there a substance to that? So we're going to just have a discussion about that and see if we can actually come up with a list of things that could be improved. Next one is the cloud adoption in the regulated life sciences industry. They've recently, and I think it was publicized via the mail shot, released a new version of the framework document, and they've also they presented the new document to the EMA, the Good Clinical Practice Group, and what they're talking about at the moment is actually putting together a roadmap for what's coming next. And so what they're going to be doing at the CSS is try and gather a bit more feedback from the groups that are there, the participants. We've also nominally got essentially a cloud discussion time blocked off as part of the Emerging Trends and Technology introductory section. So we'll see how that progresses. The Data Transparency Group, even though this is not nominally a Emerging Trends and Technologies group, it's been kind of encapsulated with us for or we're going to host it for the CSS. So Jean-Marc and his team are going to come and work together, or continue the work that they've been doing on their ADAM, the de-identification standard for ADAM, and then look at some of the feedback from the deliverables. As he says here, he's got 3 groups focusing on subject level, adverse event, and basic data structured data sets. So I think they're going to be sort of drilling down on that. And they're going to just simply have some discussions around and get together a group within the room and see what they can do to progress that. As it says, they're looking for new members, so if this is something that your company is undertaking and you have an interest in this, please come along. The data visualization groups are also going to be meeting at the CSS. They have recently adapted their scope, and they're focusing primarily on monthly demos and data visualization explorations, specifically in the area of risk-based monitoring. They're also going to be looking for more participants, and they have a very strong interest in somebody stepping in to assist with the leadership of this particular group. So they want to just kind of push it along. I think they think it's a valuable group, and they want to make sure that they have everything they need to be able to continue moving it forward. Statistical computing environments, you would have also been notified about the results of the questionnaire that they put out at the end of last year, and they did a presentation at last month's webinar. So they've got a great deal of, well, they're doing very, very well. So they're going to be meeting. They're going to be meeting together this time to actually say, okay, we've done some sort of requirements analysis across the industry. We need to tell you what we can do next. So at the CSS, they're actually going to move from where they are in terms of the current state to actually starting to pull together a set of requirements for the ideal statistical computing environment. And they'll be looking for lots of people who have an opinion on this, or who use a statistical computing environment and know what works or know what doesn't work. And they would also like to, if they possibly can, get some input from the FDA to try and see what would help them as move forward with their job. And they're also exploring the idea of an open source statistical computing environment tool to be developed by the consortium, which is kind of an interesting idea. Actually, building a product, I think, is something that I think there needs to be a lot of discussion, obviously, but we've done a lot of the domain analysis, so we'll see how that comes out. The wiki has full details of all the projects. I've been bugging my teams and those related to make sure that their wikis are up to date. So if you are interested, please go to the wiki and you can find the information. They should all be linked off the Emerging Trends and Technologies page, except for maybe the data transparency. I don't think that is at this point. We've also put together an agenda for the CSS. So you can actually see if there's particular things you're interested in dipping in and out of. You'll know as and when they're going to be taking place. And with that, I will pass it on to Tim.
Thanks, Geoff. So as we transition to the last presentation, I just want to remind folks that are listening in, if you do have any questions, please feel free to type them into the GoToWebinar panel, and we may have time for one or two before we hit the top of the hour. Tim, I will turn the floor back over to you.
Great, thank you very much. And I'll trust that you all see my screen and can hear me okay. It's up to me to bring this home on time, and I will do my best. So the Semantic Technology Working Group, the mission here is to investigate how formal semantic standards can be leveraged for both clinical and non-clinical trial data lifecycle, all of the way from the protocol right through to the submission. The group is very standards driven, so we are relying heavily on the World Wide Web Consortium semantic standards, primarily RDF or Resource Description Framework as the backbone, but also a number of standard data models released through the W3C. We are also leveraging ISO 11179 and CDIS clinical trial standards, which are increasingly available as linked data. The working group leads within this group: Scott Bellabuni from DWise, Geoff Low from Medidata, Mitra Roca from OTS, CEDAR, and FDA. Myself from UCB Biosciences, I'm filling a role previous to Frederick Malfay. We're starting off with something new this year, as Chris mentioned at the very outset, a Semantics 101 for Pharma workshop, and this will occur Sunday evening after the opening session, from 7:30 till 9 p.m., and that will be led by Mark Anderson and myself. We will introduction to the semantic web and linked data, what is this technology, and how to get started using it. We will spend some time in the Geek Zone talking about Resource Description Framework, or RDF, how to structure it, create it, query it using SAS and R, to then use it and visualize it for data exploration. But please note, this is targeted at a very introductory level. If you have no previous knowledge of what semantics is or linked data technology, this is really for you. It's a chance to come and learn about the technology at a high level while still appreciating some of the underlying technology. We'll also talk about the implications for pharma, which I think can be quite far-reaching in the future. Now, while the course has been full for some time now, we do encourage anyone who wants to learn more to please just drop by and listen in. And this will give you a lot of the background that you will need to then go and participate in one of several breakout working groups on the following days of the conference. And I'll discuss some of those working groups in a little bit more detail here, or projects, the first being the analysis results and metadata in RDF. So this is the conversion of clinical trials results and metadata to linked data, and that's led by Mark Anderson and myself. The clinical program design in RDF, led by Laszlo Vasco and Mary Bennett. Regulations in RDF, led by Mitra Roca. And a new one, use cases for linked data, that's being coordinated by Scott. There will also be updates on the CDIS standards in RDF and protocol and study design in RDF. So let's talk about a couple of those. First one, the results and metadata, led by Mark and me. We will go through the RDF Data Cube technical specifications we are developing. We'll cover the R package that we're using to convert the clinical trials data and metadata to linked data, how to use it, how to install it, and how to further develop it. And we're developing a white paper that will really outline the group's goals and deliverables. So that will be discussed as well. Our agenda on the first day will be discussion of the white paper by Marcelina Hungria. Linked data concepts will be covered for those of you who couldn't make it to the workshop. And we will then talk about the RDF Data Cube and details of the R package. On the next day, we will have a joint session with the Standard Scripts group because we wish to coordinate with them a lot. We will go into querying the data cube, how to use that data, and how to present it in interactive tables, text documents, and interactive visualizations. We will then set our goals for 2016 and forward. The clinical program design in RDF, so the leads here, and the objective and summary of the work done to date, and facilitating discussions on the proposed white paper, where the group will spend a lot of their time. So going into some detail with that in terms of what the white paper is showing, reviewing of the past work, then moving forward into the design processes, and I think section 2 is a very interesting one, looking at other industries and what we might be able to learn there. Talk about the design framework, modeling tools, and mapping concepts, and then also, of course, setting goals for 2016 and beyond. The regulations in RDF, led by Mitra, the goal here is building a searchable resource by extracting and linking the structured information from regulations and making that available in a searchable index. The phases of the project here include keyword extraction from existing regulatory documents, linking them together, and then providing a web implementation for a searchable index. The group is generating these key phrases from the 21 CFR, and then the FDA subject matter experts will be reviewing Part 11 and Part 201. The implementation approach for this group is to develop a searchable user interface for SMEs so they can search for these keywords, and they're looking at Apache Solr as the indexing web browser. So some good crossover here with some other use of Apache products here by other groups. And of course, the concept map modeling is under development. So an exciting topic there as well. For their agenda, Monday on the 14th will be a joint session with the Clinical Program Design Group, or CDP. On Tuesday, looking at the keyword search demo, usability feedback, mapping the information models, and goals for 2016, followed by a joint session again with CDP. So lots of crossover here. Use cases for linked data. This is a new project that Scott's organizing, and it's based around some of the limitations in our current state, where we are using essentially two-dimensional data models and structures to model multi-dimensional business processes and data. And we're using human metadata and business knowledge to fill those gaps. What we want to move to in the future is a linked data solution that will support the entire clinical trials data lifecycle, to have the linkages explicit, interpretable by the machine, and a lot more efficient. So at the 2016 CSS, there will be the project kickoff, and this will be part of the joint session that occurs on Monday from 11 till noon, where all of the Semantic Technology group will get together. The last portion of that section will be spent describing this new group and how it will impact across the various projects that we are working on. And I think this is a really important one because it will help us develop use cases that may lead to then business cases you could take back to your own organization to leverage for linked data implementation within your company. I must stress here that linked data experience is not required. We're actually encouraging anyone with business knowledge, process knowledge, domain expertise to come in and participate. Oops, and I missed my last slide, unfortunately. Let me just go back here really quick. I'm sorry about that, a little technical difficulty on my part here today. Just back on track, I wanted to show you one of the example use cases. So this is the linkage of adverse events to concomitant medications. And in the current state, we use some programming and what could be termed fuzzy logic here to make those linkages, which are then reviewed by subject matter experts in the business and scientific arena, so data management, physicians, and clinicians. In the future state with linked data, we could make those relationships between the event and the medication explicit. Validated, of course, but it removes several steps in the process here that may be inefficient and error-prone. CDISC standards and RDF, I wanted to mention that several of the publications already available here, the RDF user guide and reference guide available for download from cdisc.org, and this is being leveraged within multiple working groups already. CDISC Share is working on exporting additional documentation to linked data, so a lot of work going on here as well. And lastly, protocol and study design in RDF. This project's currently on hold. They did make some good progress on schedule activities and eligibility criteria, but for various reasons we found that this project had to be set to an on-hold status. Hoping to get back to this at some point because I think it's really critical to showing the linkage all the way from a clinical study report back through to the analysis result, back through to study design and to protocol. So we hope perhaps this can work in with some of the other working groups. And that's all I have, so I will pass back to Scott at this point.
Thanks so much, Tim. So I realize that we are up at the top of the hour, so unfortunately we will not have time for Q&A, so I just want to very quickly to sort of wrap up and summarize the meeting. So as you hopefully heard, we have a lot going on at the 2016 CSS this year. So hopefully you have some ideas where you might fit in, or you have some new ideas of things you might want to check out. So as Chris mentioned, and I've now updated, there are only 10 spots left. If you haven't registered, now is the perfect time to do so before, unfortunately, you would be shut out of the conference. I do just want to draw people's attention to one final thing before we close the session. So if you do have questions or you do need more information, please go to the PhUSE Wiki. As a few of our presenters mentioned, they will be posting their schedule of activities here. So if you just come to the PhUSE Wiki and you click CSS Working Groups, it will give you this page, which then you can jump to any of the working groups that you heard from today. Again, their schedules of activities at the 2016 CSS will be posted there, as well as contact information for the various working group leads. So I do want to thank our presenters this morning and thank everybody for joining the conference as well. I think this was a great session. So if you are coming to the 2016 CSS, we look forward to seeing you. And if not, register now before you happen to be shut out. So thank you everyone for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you at the conference.